Imagine sitting at the dinner table and calling your own granddaughter by the wrong name. Many think that's just age, but in truth, it can be one of the first silent warnings of dementia. And there are 10 red flags, so subtle most seniors miss them, until independence begins to slip away. I've sat with patients and families who thought memory slips were harmless, but research shows that catching early dementia signs can delay progression by up to 7 years. Some changes are so small you might overlook them, yet they hold the key to protecting your brain, your freedom, and the memories that make life worth living. 1. Insulin resistance and brain fog. Most people think dementia begins in the brain alone, but what many don't realize is that one of the earliest warning signs often starts in the body with something called insulin resistance. Think of insulin as the key that unlocks your brain cells, allowing glucose, your brain's main fuel, to get inside. But with age, and especially when we eat too many refined carbohydrates, that key starts to rust. The lock doesn't open as easily. The result? Neurons go hungry, and the brain begins to misfire. What you feel is brain fog, slower recall, or trouble focusing on conversations. A large population study from Rotterdam followed more than 6,700 adults over 55. It found that seniors with poor insulin sensitivity had a 28% higher risk of dementia. That's nearly 1 in 3 cases traced back to this silent metabolic shift. Frank, a 72-year-old retired teacher I once worked with, noticed he couldn't remember his neighbor's name. Just minutes after speaking, at first he laughed it off. But when it started happening weekly, his wife grew worried. After testing, we saw signs of insulin resistance. With a few changes, switching to whole grains, eating more salmon and leafy greens, and walking 30 minutes each day, his memory steadied. Within months, his clarity returned enough for him to tell stories to his grandchildren again without stumbling. So, what can you do? Focus on reducing refined carbs like white bread and pastries. Build meals around vegetables, healthy fats, and lean proteins. Even a daily walk can improve insulin sensitivity, giving those brain cells the steady fuel they need. And here's the part most people miss. These small steps don't just support your waistline. They can slow or even prevent the kind of brain changes that lead to dementia. 2. Cortisol rhythm, dysbiosis. Disruption. If insulin is the key that fuels your brain, cortisol is the alarm clock. It's supposed to wake you in the morning, then fade by night so your mind can rest. But for many older adults, that clock gets stuck. The alarm keeps ringing long after the sun goes down. What happens then? The brain stays on high alert. The hippocampus, the part of the brain that holds on to your memories, gets overstimulated. Instead of resting, it wears thin, like a radio left blaring static all night. Over time, that constant stress signal quietly chips away at recall and focus. Researchers from the MacArthur Successful Aging Study followed more than 1,000 adults in their 70s. Those with the highest evening cortisol and inflammation markers showed more than double the rate of cognitive decline. Double. Just from a hormone rhythm running out of tune. I remember Evelyn, a 68-year-old grandmother. She told me, "I feel wired at night, like I can't shut down." Soon after, she began missing appointments, forgetting little things. We made small changes, dimming the lights after dinner, gentle stretching, and a warm cup of chamomile tea. Within weeks, she was not only sleeping deeper, but waking with clearer recall and steadier focus. That's the lesson. Protect your evenings. Swap the late-night coffee for calming rituals. Step away from glowing screens. Let your body know it's safe to rest. Because what happens in those last hours before bed decides how well your brain repairs itself overnight. And tomorrow, you'll feel the difference. 3. Chronic inflammation signals. There's another early warning sign doctors often see, but families rarely notice. It's something called chronic inflammation. Now, inflammation itself isn't always bad. It's your body's fire alarm, there to protect you when there's injury or infection. But here's the danger. In many seniors, that alarm never shuts off. It keeps ringing day and night. And when it does, the brain is the one that gets scorched. Inside the brain, two little messengers, IL-6 and TNF-alpha, act like sparks. In short bursts, they help with healing, but when they're constantly high, they burn through memory circuits. That's when recall slows, names slip, and decision-making becomes harder. One major study followed over 1,600 adults over 65. The group with higher inflammation markers lost memory 40% faster than the rest. 40%. That's not aging, that's fire damage. George, a 74-year-old retired carpenter, told me his wife noticed he repeated questions at dinner. We looked at his diet and saw it was filled with fried foods and processed oils. He decided to make a shift, adding walnuts, salmon twice a week, and cutting back on deep-fried meals. Within months, his recall steadied, and his wife said conversations felt like the old George again. So, what's the takeaway? Put out the fire before it spreads. Simple food choices, like trading fried chicken for baked salmon, don't just help your heart, they protect your brain. Because every bite you take is either fanning the flames or calming them down. 4. Melatonin and sleep. Declined sleep isn't just rest. For your brain, it's repair. And one of the earliest signs of dementia often shows up at night when sleep no longer feels refreshing. As we age, our brain makes less melatonin, the hormone that tells the body, it's time to sleep. Think of melatonin as your night security guard. In your 30s and 40s, that guard was sharp and alert, but after 60, he starts to doze off on the job. The result? You toss and turn, never quite reaching the deep sleep your brain needs. Without those deep cycles, neurons can't clear away toxins. Over time, it's like trash piling up in the streets, slowing traffic, clogging pathways, making it harder for memories to travel smoothly. Researchers have found that poor sleep raises dementia risk by 30 to 50%. That's how powerful the night shift really is. Rosa, a 70-year-old widow, came to me frustrated. She said, I fall asleep, but I wake at 2 a.m. and can't get back. We started simple. Blackout curtains in her bedroom, no screens after 9 p.m., and a calming routine of reading before bed. Within weeks, she was sleeping through the night. The difference? Her daughter noticed Rosa could remember directions again, and she had the energy to laugh through family meals. So here's the truth. Protecting your brain isn't just about diet or exercise. It's also about honoring the night. Create a routine that signals to your body, it's safe to rest. Because every hour of quality sleep is like a repair crew, quietly working to keep your mind clear for the moments that matter most. 5. Oxidative stress and brain rust. There's a hidden process happening inside every brain after 60. Doctors call it oxidative stress, but I like to explain it this way. Imagine leaving a bicycle out in the rain. Slowly, the metal begins to rust. That's exactly what oxidative stress does to your brain cells. Over the years, tiny unstable molecules, free radicals, build up like droplets of acid rain. When we're young, our bodies have strong antioxidants to mop them up. But with age, that protection weakens. The rust sets in, damaging cell walls, slowing signals, and making memory feel patchy. The Global Burden Study looked at dementia worldwide and found something striking. Mortality from dementia increases almost 100-fold between ages 65 and 95. A major driver? Oxidative stress. It's not just time passing, it's chemistry slowly corroding the brain. Helen, a 75-year-old grandmother, used to joke that her mornings felt like walking through fog. We worked on a simple shift, adding a handful of blueberries to her breakfast, swapping tea for green tea, and roasting spinach with dinner 3 times a week. Within months, her mornings felt lighter, sharper. She told me, I finally feel like I've got my spark back. So, what can you do? Think color. The deeper the color of your fruits and vegetables, the stronger the antioxidants inside. Blueberries, spinach, green tea, even a square of dark chocolate. These are nature's rust protectors. And just as important, limit the things that add more rust: smoking, excess alcohol, or processed fried foods. Because here's the truth: your brain isn't destined to rust away. With the right daily habits, you can keep those circuits polished, firing, and alive with the memories that matter most. 6. Memory lapses in daily life. One of the most common early red flags isn't dramatic at all. It starts with the little things, like forgetting where you left your keys or missing a bill you always used to pay on time. Many seniors laugh these slips off, but when they begin to pile up, they can signal more than just age. The brain's short-term memory center, the hippocampus, is like a notepad. In early dementia, that notepad begins to fade. Notes don't stick the way they used to. What shows up in real life? Repeating questions, forgetting appointments, or losing track of conversations. The Alzheimer's Association reports that about 70% of dementia cases are first noticed through these small daily lapses. Families often say, "She just doesn't remember things the way she used to." By the time these slips are frequent, the brain has already been struggling silently for years. Mary, a 67-year-old retiree, told me she once forgot to pay her electricity bill for the first time in her life. She laughed it off, until it happened again and again. With her daughter's help, she started using phone reminders, sticky notes, and a simple wall calendar. Those supports didn't just keep her life in order, they gave her confidence back, a sense of control. So, here's the key. Don't ignore the little slips. Write things down. Use technology to help you remember. And talk to a doctor if memory problems become frequent. Because every reminder you use isn't a sign of weakness. It's a tool to keep your independence strong. 7. Language and word finding trouble. Another early sign of dementia shows up not in memory, but in language. You may know exactly what you want to say, but the word just won't come. It's on the tip of your tongue, but somehow it stays out of reach. This happens because the temporal lobe, the part of your brain that organizes and retrieves words, begins to slow down. Imagine a library where the books are still there, but the index cards are missing. The knowledge is inside, but finding it takes longer, or sometimes doesn't happen at all. Research published in the Journal of Neurolinguistics found that seniors with frequent word-finding difficulties had twice the risk of developing dementia within a few years. Twice the risk, simply from language slowing down. Alan, a 71-year-old retired engineer, told me he once froze during a story with his friends. "I couldn't remember the word for hammer," he said, shaking his head. For a man who built his career around precision, it was frightening. But Alan didn't give up. He began doing crossword puzzles each morning and reading aloud to his wife. Over time, he noticed the pauses grew shorter, and his confidence in conversation returned. The good news is, language can be exercised like a muscle. Reading aloud, playing word games, even engaging in daily conversations are all ways to strengthen those neural pathways. Don't avoid talking because you're embarrassed. Lean into it. Every word spoken is practice for keeping your brain active, because words are more than vocabulary. They're how we share our stories, our memories, and our love. Protecting your language is protecting your voice in the family you cherish. 8. Disorientation in time and place. Have you ever walked into a room and forgotten why you came in? That can happen to anyone. But when a person begins to lose track of where they are, or even what day it is, that's a different warning sign altogether. This kind of disorientation often shows up early in dementia. The hippocampus, the brain's built-in GPS, starts to shrink. It's like your phone suddenly losing signal in the middle of a familiar street. You still know the destination, but the directions are gone. A study published in Nature Neuroscience found that subtle navigation errors, like getting lost in new neighborhoods, were linked to hippocampal damage long before full dementia was diagnosed. In fact, 60% of people with mild cognitive impairment showed signs of disorientation. Clara, 69, experienced this one evening driving home from the grocery store she had visited for decades. She called her daughter in tears. "I don't know which turn to take." That moment shook the family. With help, Clara began using simple tools, carrying a small calendar, setting phone alarms for appointments, and sticking to safe walking routes. Those steps didn't just keep her oriented, they gave her peace of mind. So, here's the takeaway. Pay attention to confusion about time or place. If someone forgets the season, struggles with directions, or gets lost on a familiar route, it's not just a senior moment. It's the brain's GPS asking for help, and the sooner we respond, the more independence we can protect. 9. Mood and personality. Shifts. Sometimes the first sign of dementia isn't memory loss at all. It's a change in mood or personality. A warm, outgoing person may suddenly become withdrawn. Someone patient all their life may grow irritable or even suspicious. Families often describe it as, "he's just not himself anymore." This happens because dementia doesn't only touch memory. It also disrupts the frontal lobe and amygdala, the parts of the brain that guide emotions and behavior. Imagine a trusted radio station suddenly drifting into static. The music you love is still there, but the signal is scrambled. A study published in JAMA Psychiatry followed older adults and found that late-life depression doubled the risk of developing dementia. In other words, mood shifts can be an early biological signal, not just a reaction to aging. Henry, 73, used to be the life of every family gathering, but over time, his wife noticed he stopped joking, stopped initiating conversation. He sat quietly in his chair, distant. With encouragement, Henry began walking with a neighbor each morning. That small daily rhythm lifted his spirits, reconnected him socially, and gave his brain the stimulation it needed. His wife later told me, "It feels like I got my Henry back." The lesson is simple but powerful. Don't ignore sudden mood changes. Gentle exercise, staying socially engaged, and regular check-ins with a doctor can make a real difference. Because dementia doesn't just steal memories, it tries to dim the personality that makes you, you. And protecting that spark is just as important as protecting memory. 10. Difficulty with daily tasks. One of the clearest early red flags isn't just forgetting. It's struggling with the things you've done 1,000 times before. Cooking a familiar recipe, balancing a checkbook, following the steps of a card game you once loved. When everyday tasks start to feel like puzzles missing pieces, the brain may be showing signs of dementia. This difficulty comes from changes in the brain's executive function, the area that handles planning, sequencing, and problem solving. Think of it like a recipe card that suddenly leaves out half the instructions. You still have the ingredients, but the flow is broken. In research published in Lancet Neurology, scientists found that older adults who struggled with multi-step tasks were far more likely to develop dementia within just 3 years. In fact, over 80% of dementia cases show problems with daily activities early on. Linda, a 70-year-old grandmother, loved baking her famous apple pie. But one day, she couldn't remember which step came after peeling the apples. Her daughter began writing each step on a card and taping it to the counter. With that support, Linda not only baked her pies again, she regained her confidence in the kitchen. The message here is simple. If daily routines begin to feel overwhelming, don't brush it off. Break tasks into smaller steps, use written checklists, and let loved ones help where needed. These supports aren't signs of weakness. They're bridges to keep independence alive. Because dementia doesn't take independence all at once, it tries to chip away, step by step. And every tool, every routine, every bit of support is a way to hold on to the freedom that matters most. Our brains are not meant to fade quietly. Every choice we make, what we eat, how we move, how we rest, can protect the memories that define us. Dementia isn't just about forgetting names or misplacing keys. It's about holding on to the laughter at family dinners, the stories you share with your grandchildren, the independence to live life on your own terms. So here's my invitation. Take a moment and reflect. Which of these 10 early signs have you seen in yourself or in someone you love? Share your experience in the comments. It may help another family feel less alone. And if today's video gave you hope or clarity, consider subscribing. Together, we're building a community where aging isn't about decline. It's about strength, dignity, and protecting the moments that matter most. Because your story, your voice, and your memories are worth protecting, always.